our goal in the beginning was what you call ramen profitability. Just make enough money to be able to afford ramen noodles. That's kind of like, that was the thing.
You've solved this problem, right? You've solved the parking problem for a lot of people. What's the next step? Like, what's the next challenge?
You have to understand that sometimes you don't actually want to build literally what they're asking for, because the customer owns the problem, but you own the solution.
Was there ever a time where you thought that, okay, Offstreet is done for? If you took university out of that equation, you think you'd still be at the same place you're at right now and Offstreet would still be booming as it is right now?
So that was a long way of saying that, yeah, university, it's not needed, but I think even if outside of the courses, it can be incredibly valuable for somebody, because it was for me.
What's different about an engineering mind from a regular person?
You asked me how school was going, and I was like, nah, not so great. Like, I'm getting like 60s and 70s. So he says to me, do you know what they called the guy in my class who was at the very bottom of the score? Like, he had the lowest marks. Do you know what they called him? I was like, what? Doctor. And I was like, you're right. Like, doesn't matter.
Welcome everybody to A Little Perspective. My name is Pranav, and we have my co-host Nikhil. And we have an amazing guest today for you guys, Kyle Smith.
How's it going?
We're doing amazing, Kyle. Thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah?
Feeling good.
That's awesome, man. Well, couldn't have asked for a better person on this podcast, and we're going to have an amazing conversation today.
I believe so too.
So Kyle, why don't we get the ball rolling by you giving us a brief introduction to our viewers and listeners?
Sure. So yeah, my name's Kyle Smith. I guess I'm a software engineer by trade. I studied software engineering at the University of Regina, and now I'm kind of doing a whole bunch of stuff. I'm doing a bunch of different roles with my company Offstreet. So Offstreet is a business-to-business software as a service company that makes parking management software for enterprises such as universities, health regions, municipalities, and things like that. And so I'm the co-founder and chief technology officer. So my day-to-day is everything from writing code to doing design reviews to talking to customers, kind of just trying to grow and be a huge company.
That's crazy, man. And you mentioned like you've been playing this game for a very long time, so I'm pretty sure you're like all specialized in this now.
Yeah. We've been at it for 8 years now. And which is actually wild to think when you like look back, you're like, man, this has almost been a full decade
Crazy
doing this, right? And we started small, right? We started with an app that was simply Airbnb for parking, right? It was like a mobile app, and we had people's driveways and backyards listed as properties on our app. And we had those around like the Regina General Hospital area, and people rented them from us in the same way they would rent a spot from a company like Impark or a parking company or the city. And we got to a point where that we knew that wouldn't scale because the economics weren't really making sense. There's a reason why parking lots are a thing, because all the vehicles are in this nice one area, and you have a pretty good idea of who can be there and who can't be there.
It's more like protected. Yeah,
and when you spread that out over a bunch of different homes, and it becomes quite difficult to manage. And the unit economics didn't really make sense because we were making like $1 or $2 per day per spot. And all it took was like one person getting accidentally towed by a homeowner to like, there goes all our revenue for the month. So it was like,
whoa, yeah,
it just didn't make sense. So we kind of pivoted our product a bit to focus more on, I guess like larger institutions. So we started off in what we consider retail parking. So we work with a parking company out of Edmonton to help them manage strip malls. So the idea was you have a strip mall, so like a parking lot surrounded by like businesses essentially, and it's in a high traffic area. So they don't want everyone to be able to park there and like go across the street to work or something like that. But the businesses wanted to incentivize their customers to come in and not have to pay for parking. So you've got this conundrum of like, well, we need the lot to be enforced, We don't want customers to pay. But we want people who don't belong here to not park here. So that was our product, was this way for like the Booster Juice and the Royal Bank to like authorize their guests for free parking and only them. And then that got us into businesses, and then we started going up market into healthcare. So we got a contract with the Lower Mainland Health Region in British Columbia, Canada. And so they're using us across all 55 hospitals and clinics there.
Oh, wow.
And then that got us into larger universities like the University of Miami, the University of Houston. And we started realizing there was a huge missing piece in the university parking market when it came to event parking. So they had an app for paying for like an hourly rate. They had an internal tool for managing staff and student permits, but they didn't have something that made it really easy for guests to come to campus. So for things like football games, basketball games, and guest lectures, people that aren't staff and students are coming to campus every single day. And there was no easy way to give them reduced rate or free parking for whatever they need to do on campus, especially in campuses like the Ohio State University, where it's really a university and a health region at the same time. So there's like a dozen hospitals on campus. You have like so many people coming to campus for so many different reasons, and we are the tool to be able to make that happen.
So I got to ask you this question. When you started Offstreet, what were the beginning few years like? What were those late nights like? Like those struggles, those problems, like guide us through.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, in the beginning, my co-founder Matt and I had quit our jobs, and we had enough kind of savings to kind of get by, I guess you could say. And our goal in the beginning was what you call ramen profitability. So it's just make enough money to be able to afford ramen noodles. That's kind of like, that was the thing. So yeah, the early days were, I wouldn't necessarily say late nights, because I'm somebody who like requires a good amount of sleep to function. Like there's diminishing returns in terms of if you can't just throw hours at a problem. Like you have to be kind of strategic, especially when you're doing like complex things. But yeah, there were very basic meals being prepared. My go-to was like, you could buy a pork loin at Costco for $20, and it was like this huge, like 2-foot long piece of meat. Chop it up into pork chops, get a bag of frozen vegetables, bag of rice, and then your per meal is like $1.50. And that was like my staple meal in my household. And then at the same time, this is a funny story. This summer we went full time. McDonald's released their app, and it was called My McDonald's. So like McDonald's app, it's been out for a long time. But when to get adoption, they had a deal. So like when you signed up and logged in, you could get $1 Big Mac. And I found out that if you logged out and logged back in, you could still get the $1 Big Mac. So for like 2 weeks, I had Big Macs for meals. And like if you're looking at in terms of calories, like cost per calorie, $1 for 680 calories is a great it's a great deal, right? So yeah, that's what I remember most about the early days, was like the food, because it was like that was the thing that you're kind of cheaping out on, or at least I was anyway. Yeah.
So like everybody has like their own inspiring backstory as to like how they started their company.
Yeah.
So what was the backstory for Offstreet? Like what inspired you guys?
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone's really that passionate about parking, to be honest. And I don't think it wasn't my motivation. And I don't think it was Matt's either. We were motivated and inspired because we wanted to have a startup. So when I was in like high school and growing up, one of the biggest websites on the internet was a website called dig.com. And so nowadays people are using Reddit and other kind of social networks, but dig.com was where you would go for like news, and like especially tech news. And it was run by a guy named Kevin Rose, and he had a podcast called Dig Nation. And it was like a tech bro podcast in the like early 2010s. And it was awesome. I kind of idolized like Kevin Rose because like he had his startup Dig, and I was super interested in that San Francisco, Silicon Valley startup type thing. And my business partner, Matt, essentially I met him because he had the same kind of dream. He's like, he wanted to start a startup also. And he kind of approached me with the idea for like Airbnb for parking, because we were seeing all these like Uber for this, Airbnb for that, Netflix for that, right? That was the kind of gold rush going on between like 2015 and 2020. And he was the first person to come to me with an idea to build a company or to start an app with a plan. He had done the research. He had been watching the right content out there. He was looking at the essays from Y Combinator, saying all the right things. I knew he was serious about it. And so that for me was like the inspiration. It was like, hey, I want to do this startup thing because I know it's exciting. I know it's difficult, but the ability to be able to scale it, you can scale that so much further than a traditional business. I found that was pretty cool. And then parking was just a problem we saw in front of us. It was like, hey, it kind of sucks. Like it could be better, and we can maybe be the ones to fix it.
And so how did you and Matt meet?
Yeah, that's a great story also. So we met through his now wife. She was in university living with one of my good friends in a bungalow just across the street from the university. And it was my friend Kyle, Matt's now wife Maple, and like a dozen Brazilians. And like, I'm not even joking, like there was like 3 to a room type scenario. And she was there because the rent was cheap. And I was just at house parties there with my friend Kyle's house, hanging out with it and partying with these Brazilians. And then she was there and I met her. And then when he had brought this idea up about like starting a tech company, her first thought was, oh, talk to the Kyles. Because like both Kyle and myself, Kyle, were, in the same year in software engineering. She's like, hey, you should talk to the Kyles. And he talked to me first. So
that was like your guys' tag name?
Exactly, yeah.
What was his background? Was he also from tech or more business?
Yeah. So Matt came from finance. So he's a CPA or CFA and studied finance. So he's got the business side. So which is a good combo to have. So in the beginning, he was selling the product and I was building it.
That's crazy. So in these 8 years, like if you had to reflect back, like, Nicola and I followed this guy, Alex Ramosi, online. And one of the craziest things that he said that really made sense to me is like life only makes sense in reverse. Like you can only connect the dots in reverse. So if you had to reflect back on almost a decade of Offstreet,
yeah,
how would you say that?
How would I say, like, what I like about like seeing it in reverse? Or,
yeah. Like a good reflection point.
Yeah, I guess like for me, I mean, yeah, obviously the looking back, it's much clearer, but I always knew that there were only a few moments during our journey where like I had maybe doubts, and it was like getting over a few different humps in what we were doing. So when I look back, I knew we would be successful, but the how wasn't quite as clear. I didn't think we would get into universities, for example. Like we stumbled upon the university problem just from like sheer brute force trying to figure out a market for the product. But I knew that like what we were doing was useful. There was value in it. And so I thought that our kind of efforts in the retail parking, commercial parking, I thought that would be kind of our thing more than it is the universities. But I always had kind of conviction we were doing the right things. It took longer than I thought to get where we are, that's for sure. The pandemic didn't help when parking didn't matter for a year and a half.
Right.
That hurt the industry quite a bit and that set us behind. But yeah, it's looking back, it was like, yeah, it's actually pretty cool.
Right.
Like how far we've gotten. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Okay, so I got a question for you. I was watching the TED Talk that you gave. By the way, everybody check that out. I'll post the link in the comment section. You were talking about solving a complex problem in the simplest way, right? So for you, for Offstreet or just general in life, what's the most complex problem you've solved the simplest way?
So I would look at, I'm glad you brought that up because that's our like product mantra when it comes to working at Offstreet. We make the complex simple is kind of one of our product pillars. And so the most complex thing that I've ever done is part of our product we call, like, there's a number of different names we call it, but it's kind of our parking rules engine. So if you look at parking, it looks pretty straightforward, right? A vehicle shows up for a certain amount of time and they pay a certain rate. But there are a lot of exceptions to that. There's a lot of complex things that have to happen and be organized. So when we look at the events our users are making in our platform, a parking event looks like, okay, let's think of it's a 3-day basketball tournament at like the University of Ohio. And on the first day, they have 3 parking lots available. The second day, it's the same 3 parking lots available, but on the last day of it, it's a weekend, so they have 8 more available. And each of those parking lots has a different price. And then a driver can they can show up to one of these events, and each one they have to choose a parking lot to pick, which has a rate associated to it. And depending on what they choose, there's different overflows that have to happen within those parking lots. So like one parking lot may only have, 20 spots available. And then if it's not available, you have to go to the next one. So we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to solve these operational challenges that these campuses have with traffic flow and occupancy and rate management and revenue management, and make that really simple to kind of configure so that like a student who's working part-time at the parking and transportation office can just make this event. So yeah, the most complex thing is our product, because our niche in the market is the hard problems that can't be solved by the incumbents. Because our competitors have products that they're not developing anymore. They've gotten to a point where they work for 80% of the use cases. We're trying to solve that 20% that nobody's figured out, because that's the gap in the market and that's the one we can attack. So yeah, if you want to talk parking, it can be surprisingly complex. And I personally get a lot of joy out of solving difficult problems. So yeah.
That's awesome. So now, of course, you talk about problem solving, you talk about technology. You've solved this problem, right? You've solved the parking problem for a lot of people. What's the next step? What's the next challenge?
Yeah. For me or for the company?
You can talk about both.
Okay.
If you don't want to talk about the company, that's fine too.
Sure. So personally, I'm a gamer. I've grown up on video games, and when I think of difficult things to do, I think the idea of starting a game studio or building video games to be quite interesting. For a number of reasons, video games are an interesting way to express art, right? Because if you think of it's like a film that you get to experience, you're the character in the film or a book, right? And I find that super interesting. And it's very difficult because what we're doing with Offstreet, in terms of tiers of difficulty, business to business software is, in my mind, the least difficult because it's very straightforward. It's your business has a problem. I'm going to solve that for you. And it will make sense economically because by paying money, you're solving your problem. And that might actually save you money because you purchased a solution to make you more efficient. The next tier of software is business to consumer. So this is the apps like Facebook, Netflix, TikTok. Much harder to do because the consumer is much more fickle than a business. The business is hey, we got a process. We're paying X amount per year. It's in the annual budget. The consumer is nah, I'm bored. I don't want this anymore, right? So the churn is much higher and the deal value is much lower, right? Because a business is paying maybe thousands of dollars per month. A consumer's paying $15 a month for Spotify, right? So that, in my mind, that's hard, consumer, business to consumer. And then I look at games, that is in my mind the ultimate thing, the ultimate difficulty, because you're not selling a problem, you're selling entertainment, right? And entertainment is subjective. And so someone isn't buying your product to solve a problem in their life, they're using it to fill time. And so you're competing with every other form of entertainment, film, television, other game developers. So I think that problem is super interesting because if you can crack it, that must give you a lot of satisfaction. It's hard and it's just an interesting way to express yourself and your ideas and your art. And I've got some friends in the games industry that I would like to work with, and that would be pretty cool.
That's crazy. And you know, one thing that I figured out, and even for this podcast and like in life in general too, like if you don't enjoy doing something yourself, you won't be fully passionate towards it. Like say for example that you make a video game. If you don't enjoy playing that game yourself, developing it further or like making more enhancements to it, it won't be like 100% coming from within you. So what's an ideal type of entertainment for you? Like what gets you going? Like you're like, yeah, that's something that I love playing and that's something that I want to create in the future. Like what kind of game would you like even design?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'll just like comment about like the process you've described. And I think that like, yeah, like you do need to enjoy the process of like what you're doing to get really to get value from it or to be happy. I mean, that's what I think, because like I said earlier, I'm not super passionate about parking, right? It's parking. I would love to not have to drive ever, right? That would be great for me. But the process is interesting. I'm able to solve complex challenges, and I got a lot of satisfaction when a user sends us an email and they're so happy. They're like, "Thank you so much. This is saving us so much time." And so for me, it's about like complex things that you can solve and like get feedback on how much value you've kind of provided. And so to answer your question, like what type of game I would make, it would be one that is hard and complex, but like probably most like strategy or kind of long, like slow burn type games where it's not immediate gratification. It's like a process that you kind of you discover something and then you feel smart because you're like, oh, I just solved this problem. I feel smarter. And then now the next one's harder. And that's kind of like, it kind of just goes up and up and up and up, I think. Because those are the types of games that I play, ones that are like easy to start and then they get harder over time. And sometimes you bash your head against a wall for hours. And then when you get it though, you feel amazing. Yeah.
Have you played Red Dead Redemption 2?
I have not. No. Yeah.
It's an awesome game. Like I haven't completed it.
Yeah.
But one of my friends had it and the graphics are just out of this world.
Mm-hmm.
It's an awesome
game. It's crazy how far that has come in terms of like there's this thing called like uncanny valley, and it's like the more real there's like a dip in terms of like experiencing realism when it comes to graphics fidelity. And a lot of the games now have like crossed that gap because for a while there, things were trying to be realistic and it just didn't work. But now that the graphics engines are so good, you can get these really high fidelity experiences and you're like, I feel like this is a movie.
Right.
It's like, it feels like this is a real person, right? It's wild.
Right. So talking about games, like personally, I have never been exposed to a lot of games.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed in my life is that people who read a lot of books, and I'm talking about fiction, not nonfiction, read a lot of books, play a lot of games, they have a very different kind of wiring in the brain. Like they're pretty creative, right? What do you think about that?
I think that's probably true because I read far more fiction than nonfiction, and yeah, I do immerse myself in content, whether it's video games, television, or film, or theater, right? So I'd say that I don't know if it's if that makes me creative or if I was just creative and therefore I enjoy more creative pursuits and things. I don't know if it's cause and effect or not, but yeah, I mean, I agree with it for sure.
Like speaking about this just kind of gave me this thought, and just want to get your ideas on it too. That you mentioned like different tiers of difficulty, like B2B being the easiest and like this gaming industry being like the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think like after a certain point, you're selling a feeling rather than like a product, which makes it so much harder for people, like which makes the whole industry so much harder? Because when you're selling a feeling, that involves people to relate to it on a much higher level and in a way like stick to it. Because like, say for example, like there's GTA, right? Like it's been out for so many years, and like even we might be saying this to our kids, like that was the game.
Right.
Or there might be some other games like FIFA, for example. Like it's been out for like what, since 2001 or something? I could be wrong. But everybody's like, yo, we used to play that when we were kids or something.
Right.
So do you think like it's the idea of selling a feeling?
I think so too. But I think that is also applicable to like other tiers too. So like if you think of, go back to B2B, you go to Offstreet, are we selling a feeling? Like it's not immediate, but what we are, like the product that we're selling, we hope that it gives our users so much satisfaction that the feeling they feel is like, I don't know, relief or just like joy, that there's something that they can use that just makes their life significantly easier. And we feel that in the feedback we receive from them. Like I've never been part of a company before where, and also I understand that I am biased because I am like management of this company and I kind of see everything as it's going on, but I've never worked anywhere where like customers would go out of their way to thank you for like doing what you're doing.
But that only happens when you set a foundation like that.
True. Yeah.
Right. Like if you can be biased towards it, but like if you're doing a good job, you're doing a good job. Like there's nothing cocky to say like, yeah, like, well, I'm biased towards it. I mean, you decide how the company functions. You decide the trajectory of it.
Yeah, very true. But yeah, I never thought in a million years, like a parking company would receive like so much like praise from the people that use our product. Cause it's boring stuff at the end of the day, but it just, there's so much joy and elation from our users. And when it comes to like entertainment, I think that you're exactly right. Like video games, music, film, like you are selling an experience, and like that's ultimately a feeling that the person enjoying that content or entertainment is going to feel, and that's what's going to keep them coming back for sure. And it's also what will keep them away if they don't enjoy it, right? If they don't feel anything, or they feel something they don't like, they're gonna quit, right?
I've got a selfish question for you.
Let's do it.
So, you and Matt, like you guys were friends, you guys started this company, you've been in the industry for a long time. You know the startup industry. You've grown it from 0 to 1, right? Do you have any advice for guys like you who's just starting a company, who was starting from 0 to 1? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. The biggest piece of advice, and it's one that we learned from organizations like Y Combinator, the most important thing is to talk to customers and listen to them. Because at the end of the day, they will tell you what they need. They might not literally tell you what they need. And it's your job to kind of keep digging to figure out what solution you have to their problem. But like being in touch with your customer is, I think it's the most important thing, and it will separate like a good founder from a not so good one, and really set you up for success. But just kind of understand exactly the person you're building your product for, what their problems are, what their what they do day to day that they're not getting from their existing kind of tool set. So yeah, it's super important to talk to customers always, right? Like the majority of my week, well, these days maybe not so much, but at least once or twice a week, I have an hour-long call with a customer. Because it's never done, right? We're constantly evolving the product. And each time we solve a problem, there's another one we have to address. Or sometimes we solve the wrong one and they don't land and we have to go back and like make sure that we get it right. And so, we spend a lot of time talking to them, existing customers, potential customers, trying to understand their problems, and anticipate their future ones as well. Because they're going to tell you immediately what's in front of them, but it's also your job to kind of go deeper and figure out, okay, what issues are they going to have in 6 months? What issues do they have right now that they don't even know are issues, but like are in the way of efficiency or in the way of productivity for their team, or things that give them, problems. And then, there's other stuff that's important too, but nothing's more important than ultimately people using and paying for your product.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it's for them. It's their solutions, right, that you're building.
Yeah.
So you have to listen to them.
Exactly. Yeah. And also though, you said an interesting word that I just triggered. So you listen to them. That's important. Also, you have to understand that sometimes you don't actually want to build literally what they're asking for, because they have in their mind, like someone told us this very early on, the customer owns the problem, but you own the solution. So you want them to tell you their problem, not have them come up with a solution for themselves and build it. Sometimes they're really good and you might take those ideas, but ultimately your goal is to like solve a problem that's going to scale beyond them, because they know exactly what they want for themselves. And that might not apply to a different type of customer as well. So you have to figure out what the actual problem is, see if other customers might have that problem, and then solve it in a generic way so that they all can get value from it. And sometimes that means having customers change the process because they might be set in their ways. They don't want to change what they currently do. And if that's the case, hire a consultant to come in and build exactly what you need for you. But yeah.
It reminds me of the quote from Henry Ford. He said that if I had asked people, they would have wanted a faster horse.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And so like there's an innovation in there as well, where it's like, yeah, the problem wasn't a faster horse. The problem was they just want to get from point A to point B faster, right? So, yeah.
And just to follow up on Nikhil's question as well, that say that you figure out the 0 to 1. Now, and I feel like this might be beneficial for like a lot of startups out there or a lot of people who are working towards a business. And I just want to get your perspective on it. In the past 8 years, and by the way, I love your mindset that in the back of your mind, you always knew that, yeah, this is going to succeed. We're going to like be successful. But was there ever a time where you thought that, okay, Offstreet is done for?
Yeah, that there has been. There was like one point where I kind of lost conviction, and it was more about not really understanding where we fit in the market. So this was like super early days, and it was getting our second customer. There was a huge gap in time. I'm talking like almost a year that like we had we didn't literally, like we did have a couple of deals in that year, but we didn't really have a customer that stayed. So we initially launched with a parking company out of Edmonton, and it was like a long time until we landed another one. And so I kind of lost conviction somewhere in that period of time, because it was like we were thinking that, oh man, or I was thinking we built a solution for one customer. So it was kind of like the opposite of what I just preached in the earlier question about like, oh, did we build a product for like, that's only this customer's problem kind of thing. And there's a huge gap in time before we closed that second one. We're like, did we even build the right product? We did, but we pivoted the messaging. We were saying the wrong words. We were approaching our product in the market and we said, we have a solution to help you manage free parking. because it's what it did. It was a strip mall. You want to give free parking to your customer. We help you with that. However, there's no actual such thing as free parking. Somebody is paying, like land is not free. Someone's paying for it. It's either the driver, the taxpayer, the landlord, or the property management company, or the tenant that is renting the building. Someone's paying. So we had to figure out the word for what we were trying to do. And that word ended up being, or was called parking validations. So you validate to have your parking validated means it's been paid for by somebody else. So in that strip mall, Booster Juice was validating your parking. In their tenant agreement, they were saying our customers get X amount of free parking. So Booster Juice is paying for that. So we changed the words. We said, oh, we don't, it was no longer we help you free parking. It was we help you with validations. And suddenly the customers were like, oh yeah, validations are hard. Like, oh yeah, like we don't do anything. We don't know what to do. And so once we started using the right words, we were good. And then things started to move again. And then I guess I had conviction in it because I was so confused. It was like, this is the product for the market. Why is it not working? Why are they buying this? It's exactly what they need. But we were saying the wrong words.
So then you figured out your problem. Now, what advice would you have for other startups or other people who might seem like, oh shit, I'm stuck, or maybe it's time to give up on the so-called dream?
Yeah, well, you know how we solved that problem? We talked to the customers. And so we were approaching it as like we had a solution for a problem. We weren't approaching it from listening to the actual problem. So we were saying, hey, we have a solution for you. It helps you manage free parking. That's not landing. But then you talk to them like, hey, what challenges do you guys have at your strip malls? Oh yeah, like we've got people parking and then going across the street to their business, or like parking all day and then going to work. And we're like, oh, okay. So how would you solve that? Like what would be like how do you deal with that? And like, oh, we get like the business person to write on like a chalkboard. They like write their plate down, and then our parking guy goes in and checks the plates on the board and then doesn't ticket them. And we're like, oh, okay. What if there was a tool that just allowed the customers to input their license plates when they arrived at the business? Oh, that would be great. So, yeah, like how we solved that was back to like just actually talking to the customers and actually understanding their operations and their problems.
Right. So for the last 8 years, as you say that you guys are always evolving, you're always having a call with the customer and solving their problems, right? In the past 8 years, what was your eureka moment? You're like, man, that's a great idea. Let's do it this way.
That's interesting. I can't recall a eureka moment. I recall a bunch of little small things that were like, oh, interesting. The biggest one that I can think of, well, now it's a much more obvious, but it was these little things about using the right words. So when we were saying free parking, as I mentioned earlier, we realized we were supposed to be saying parking validations. But when we started to approach institutions like university campuses and health regions, the parking companies understood what a parking validation was, but the institutions that message wasn't resonating. And the eureka moment with universities, and that's where we've had the most growth in the last year. Where do we start? Well, we have about 55 campuses right now in North America using our product. And for them, it wasn't parking validations, it was events. That was their pain point. It was like, yeah, we run X amount of events on campus every single day, and I have to create custom parking permits in our software for every single one of them. They email me a list of license plates, and I have to manually input them into the system. And we're like, oh, what if you could email out a link to all the people attending your event, and they would put their license plates in? And then we would have a report you could run to backbill the athletics department. Oh, that would be amazing. So our eureka moments were like figuring out the messaging and the words, because at the end of the day, the product, we've improved the product over the last 8 years, but it's fundamentally the same. We're helping people put their license plates in a system and they don't have to pay for it. Somebody else is paying for it. So yeah, eureka moments have been messaging.
Small little wins. Yeah. Awesome. So, you're a co-founder of a big company, Offstreet, right? And when you see people like that, I mean, you're well established, right?
Thank you. Yeah.
Your time is very valuable.
Yeah.
Right. And over the years, you must have learned about time management. You've learned how to manage your time even better, right? Mm-hmm. What's your relationship with time like at this moment?
It's always been bad, and I blame ADHD probably more than anything on that one. But something that I've learned is like I've always not like stressed too. Like I've always ran into problems when I've stressed about time. So something that I've struggled with my entire life was sleep. So when I had like a normal job, you're expected to be there from 8 to 5 or whatever, and so that means that you set the alarm clock for 7. But I've always struggled with falling asleep. And the later things got, the more anxiety there was around time. It was like you go to bed at like 10. You're like, great, I've got like 10 hours until I have to wake up. And you're in bed, you're tossing and turning. Oh no, it's midnight. I only have 7 hours now. And now like, oh, it's 1. I only have 6 hours of sleep now. And then so I've always struggled with time. So I stopped using an alarm clock. And I just woke up like naturally with the sun or with my circadian rhythm. And I've been doing that for a number of years, unless I have something very specific in the morning that's like, okay, I might not make it if I don't alarm clock. And I try to keep my daily schedule pretty open. I don't like to back-to-back meetings are kind of a no-go for me. It's like I have a couple scattered throughout the day and I just kind of like show up and I don't think about it too much. And I work when I can and when I'm inspired, and then when I'm not, I just stop. So yeah, I'd say time management for me is still an ongoing struggle. I try to be efficient with it, but I also find that when I personally try to do things more efficiently, I over engineer, over efficiency, whatever. I go too hard and I make it complicated and whatnot. So yeah, it's hard.
Sleep is a big one. Honestly, like same example I'll use. So some days I feel like, okay, I only slept 6 hours. Tonight I'll go to bed at 9. Okay. I go to bed at 9 and I can't fall asleep.
Yeah, exactly.
And
right.
then you get anxious that I'm not falling asleep, and then you don't fall asleep even more.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like a vicious circle, keeps going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did the alarm clock and it was life changing. And I was pretty fortunate to be able to do that. Because like not everybody has that luxury to like just show up whatever they want. So I understand that, but that worked out really well for me. Yeah.
So do you just go to bed super early?
It depends. I try to like be consistent about it. But anywhere between, 9 p.m. and midnight. But, part of my bedtime routine is reading. And, sometimes like I'm reading fiction and things are getting exciting and I don't want to put it down, right? It's like, oh no, like last night, 1 a.m. I mean, it was Friday night, but whatever. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Right. So we started this podcast based on this idea that stories are really powerful, right? And they can inspire you to do a lot of things in life, right? Has there been any story in your life while you were growing up that you were really, really inspired by? It could be fiction, could be somebody in your life. Mm-hmm. Is there any story that you want to share?
Yeah. So my dad was also an entrepreneur, and he was actually, it's actually pretty impressive. So he was a bit of an innovator, but a little too early. So when I was growing up, he had a number of different businesses along the way. But once I was like a normal or like a thinking human being able to comprehend what was going on, when I was like 8 or 9, he had started a web development company in the late 90s. And he was essentially making websites for local businesses, because like the internet was a thing. And people were like, more and more businesses were getting online. Google wasn't quite a thing yet, but there were like directories of like, businesses and businesses would like advertise on the internet. So he was doing that. And then at the time he realized a gap in the like RMT, like massage therapist market, where these massage therapists were like going to places to, massage people, or they had their own private practices. So we kind of developed this like booking system to be essentially like e-commerce booking management for massage therapists. And so now you would use like a tool like MindBody, or like there's plenty of apps out there. This was like late 90s, early 2000s, and it was just like too early. So he was like ahead, like if he had waited 5-10 years when the costs of developing software came down, because in the late 2000s, we had the rise of web applications. Like it was like Web 2.0. That's when like Twitter came out, Facebook came out, that kind of thing. If he had waited like 5-10 years, he would have been like good, but he was just too early. The web wasn't quite there yet to be able to have this like kind of booking system. And so I was like really inspired by that. And I went, and like that kind of got me into software and tech, because he had employees that were software developers and they would teach me things. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I was always like into computers. But that would probably be the start of that kind of my journey for sure.
Wow, that's awesome. It's in the blood, eh?
I guess so, yeah. It's funny too, because I saw like how difficult that was for him, and how like stressful and how that affected our family, because like, the entrepreneur life is great sometimes, but not always. And so there were like, struggles. And so when I say like he was too early with that product, it was like too early and the business failed, right? And so that affects the family. And after that, I was like, okay, I never want to do that, because that looks really hard. I just want it sounds dumb saying it, but my dream was a cubicle at IBM. That was like, because like that was like IBM was the shit back 100%, in the day, right? 100%. Like Google didn't exist yet. So I was like, man, like that'd be great. A cubicle, like a good like little thing for me. I don't have to worry about the stresses of like running a company. I could just write code and software all day. It's like, that's my goal. And then it's like, yeah, I would never do that. I would never go to a company like that. So it's funny.
Everything works out in the end.
Yeah, I guess so.
So how did your dad bounce back from that? Because you mentioned like, since the company failed, a hard time hits. How does he manage and, overcome that hard time?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough for me to say like if he ever truly did, but his background was in marketing and sales. And so he had a couple of good gigs after that where he stopped doing the entrepreneur thing and ended up going and working for various different companies. He was in healthcare for a bit. He had worked for, he did sales for like a steel plant and a manufacturing company, a chemical company. So I think like kind of, if I were to generalize or like kind of conceptualize how he navigated that, I think he kind of looked at like what he was good at and like just doubled down as like, hey, like I'm good at marketing and sales. I'm going to go and do that.
Right.
Kind of thing.
And you mentioned that seeing that business fail like completely changed your perspective as to, okay, I'm never going down that entrepreneurial route.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to start that because it's just too difficult.
Yeah.
So that was, you were around 8 or 9.
Yeah.
At what age did it change that you're like, hey, I'm done working a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
It's time to start something of my own?
Yeah, it was so... I'll bring it up again. Like I've had ADHD my whole life, and one of the symptoms or one of the things that most people who have it, especially men or boys, is like you don't, in school you see everyone else doing well, and you look at yourself, you do okay, but you work way harder than everybody else, right? Because like your attention isn't as good. It takes you longer to learn things, or rather the style of our education system isn't good for a person with ADHD, because like you're sit there and listen and watch. Whereas like for me, I've always learned by doing. So I struggled hugely in school. I still am shocked that I have a university degree. Like it's just a side story on this. So have you heard the phrase C's get degrees? Okay. So like that, I was like, that's like, I was a 77, like, I mean, the software classes I absolutely nailed, but everything else, not so much. And my family doctor, my physician at the time, his name's Dr. Elliott, he asked me how school was going. And I was like, nah, not so great. Like I'm getting like 60s and 70s. And he says to me, do you know what they called the guy in my class who was at the very bottom of the score? Like he had the lowest marks. You know what they called him? And I was like, what? Doctor. And I was like, you're right. Like, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you get at school, right? The guy's still a doctor, even though he sucked at school, right?
Oh yeah.
So I was like, okay. I didn't know that was the thing. I thought all these scores mattered, and then they don't, right? So that changed things for me. And that was kind of the beginning of like building confidence. And then once I started in my later years in university, when I kind of realized I was like, I am smart. It's just that like, I'm not good at this type of learning. I'm not good at school, but I am smart. And then working, you get more confidence. And then you start to realize like, oh no, I'm actually like quite good, right? Like once you kind of put in the reps, you kind of learn processes, you learn systems. And now you're comparing yourself to like, you work a couple of years and then you look at the folks that are, 10 years ahead of you and you're like, oh, I'm as good as them. That's like the confidence level just kept going up. And then a couple bad decisions from management. I looked at like what they were doing, what I knew about tech companies. And I was like, I think I can do a better job. And I was like, if these guys can be successful, I know I can. That was like, and make no mistake, the company I was with had plenty of smart people. They were great. Couple of bad management decisions, I thought, that kind of set me off. But I was like, oh, I think I'm better than them. And if they can do it, I can do better, kind of thing. And so now will Offstreet be as big as that company is? I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the moment. Yeah.
And on a serious note, like and Nikhil really preaches about this because he has a pretty strict mindset about it. And I'll ask you this question. If you took university out of that equation, you think you'd still be at the same place you're at right now and Offstreet would still be booming as it is right now? Because you mentioned like the style of education, like sure, like software. Like if you love something, you'll love, like studying about it, acing the exams.
So I'll say no. I know this sounds crazy, but I actually really loved university.
Oh yeah.
I hated the actual learning class part, but the culture was really important for me. Engineering is a really interesting program because you are locked in essentially 9 to 5 in classes and labs. And the first 2 years, it's the same people you're around. So from 8 in the morning till like 3 p.m. every single day, Monday to Friday, you're with the same group of people for 2 years. So like you form really good friendships with your classmates and you're always around each other. It's like I had other friends that were in different programs. They would show up for a class, go home, but we were there all day together the whole time. So that experience was really important to me. And then in my second year, I ended up failing a bunch of classes. The first year I kind of got by. Second year, things just got hard and like I just wasn't capable of learning. I wasn't able to keep up anymore. And failing those 3 classes that year or that semester was one of the best things that ever happened to me because I was getting carried by my friends. They would like all the subjects I was the software guy. And so because with the 2 years in engineering, you're taking just core engineering classes. I like nailed the computer science stuff. And so I was the guy that did the computer science work and taught everybody. And then I was relying on the physics guy, the math guy, the engineering principles guy, the chemistry person. And so I was getting carried through classes and then I failed. And then so now I was in this period where with engineering, it's so strict that because I failed 3 classes, they were prerequisites for the next semester. And the way the schedules work, I couldn't take them again until the next year because they were only offered in fall. So I was like, all I could do was take a couple like humanities electives in the next semester. I had to wait so I was a full year behind. But in that year, I was like, first off, like when you fail a class, like you really feel dumb, right? Like it's a good feeling to get through, but it sucks, right? You feel so stupid. So I have taught myself. I was no longer able to get carried. I was in a new year with people I didn't know because I was with these people for 2 years. Now I'm in the year behind me. I don't know anybody. They all know each other because they have a core thing. So I was like, I'm on my own. I had to learn how to learn. I had to figure that out. And then I had all this time because I was only taking 2 or 3 classes a semester, waiting to take engineering classes again. I got involved with my student society. I joined the student union. And then I was like, I met some of the most important people in my life through student government or student like extracurricular stuff. And that was a core piece in learning how to run an organization because I was the president of the Regina Engineering Student Society. I was representative on the Canadian Federation of Engineering Students. Tremendous personal and professional value from those like organizations, more than the education component. So that was a long way of saying that, yeah, university, it's not needed, but I think even if outside of the courses, it could be incredibly valuable for somebody because it was for me.
I think it's about the environment, like the people you meet. If you go to a TED Talk event, for sure, you're there to listen to the person who's speaking, right? It's more so about the people around there, like the connections that you made. If you go to a SIPE event, like I met you through the SIPE event.
Right, exactly.
It's so valuable.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, and the cool thing about organizations like, student groups like SIPE, the Saskatchewan Young Professionals and Entrepreneurs, is those type of people are the ones that are doing more than what's expected, right? It's like people who are on their engineering student society, like they're not just there for engineering, they're there to do more, right? And I've always thought of like the people who are going above, those are the people that are going above and beyond. They're like, I like this, I want more, I want to do more. I'm going to go to a networking event. I'm going to go hang out with other people that think like me, that are motivated to do the same things like me, like going to professional events. 100%. 100%.
What's been the craziest university story?
Oh, so there's a few. The one thing that the engineers were always, we were known as kind of like the troublemakers. And we would get a lot of satisfaction in like breaking the rules, but like being compliant in them. Like, how do I say this? Like, there's a rule that isn't like, and there's like a way to bend it. We are really good at that. And so we were quite a profitable student society because we would run a lot of events. At the time, like Beer Fest was a big one where we would rent the Owl, which was the campus bar. And the Owl has a capacity limit of like 400 people. So it's only 400 tickets you can sell. But the annoying thing about students or any time you run a party is some people don't show up until 11 or 12 at night, or some people just don't show up. And so, you have like, you could have had more people in the party, but they didn't, like, you only were able to sell 400 tickets. So we licensed the multi-purpose room as a lineup. So instead of waiting in line to get into Beer Fest, you could wait in line and drink and play beer pong and before you would like come into the actual party.
So it's like the pregame.
Yeah, exactly. So like we had like the campus bar full and we flew this DJ in every time. He was in Vegas and I don't know, one of the guys like knew him and he was super cheap because all he wanted was a flight for him and his buddy, a hotel room, free drinks, and like $1,000 cash. And he was good. So we fly him up from Vegas. It's bumping in the bar. It's at capacity in the multi-purpose room where they have like the student government like union meetings, right? It's huge. And we have like this series of table mazes of people in the lineup and like they're playing beer pong on the tables. Like it was crazy. So that was always fun running that event. And some of the pranks we did were pretty cool. We pranked the Education Student Society. One day we laid down sod we made a backyard in their lounge. So like we laid down tarp and then put like grass and then like, brought in a bunch of patio furniture. We built an outhouse in it, like stuff like that. It was just so fun. There's so many hours we spent just chilling in the engineering lounge, just trying to think of stupid things to do. And like, it's those ideas that like, usually don't make it out of like, beers. But they did. It was like, hey, we should do this. And you're like, yeah, we should. And then you do it. Yeah.
So hence university was fun for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was, oh, that's great. It's fantastic. I miss it. Like sometimes I go back and I reminisce about like,
yeah. It's so much fun. Awesome. So you see all these founders of companies, right? Most of them are engineers, right? And you can say the phrase, you guys are built different.
Sure.
What's different about an engineering mind from a regular person?
So I think one of the maybe not an engineering mind, but an engineering program is just generally like I wouldn't go so far as to say it's harder or more difficult than a traditional program, but it's the amount of work it's the core. It's not that the subjects are difficult. It's just there's so much you have to do. And so like I mentioned earlier, you're doing this Monday through Friday, 8 to 3. And then after your last class, you've got only a couple hours in the day to do your homework that's assigned and do in the next class because you've got 5 classes and then 3 to 5 labs, and each of them have their own assignments and midterms. So it really feels like you're taking 8 courses. So just being able to do that, you're conditioned to do things that are difficult and be efficient at them. I think that's a huge thing there. But also like engineers are just natural. Like the reason engineering is just problem solving, like real world problem solving. And someone who studies engineering or computer science grew up playing Lego or like doing something that involved creativity and structure, like playing with trains or building train sets or Hot Wheels, like stuff. So it's just like people who are interested in building and creating things generally kind of go into engineering. And so I think that's what you might mean as an engineering mind is built different, and just because like you're looking at the world through like fundamentals as opposed to what it is, or like it's like, okay, how did this get to be the way it is, and then how can we make it better and change it? But that being said, though, I think plenty of founders can be successful not as engineers too. So my business partner, Matt, is not an engineer. I know other startups that are successful where their founding team are not engineers, and they're doing well. It's just a lot cheaper to do when one of your team members who is working for free can actually build the product and you don't have to hire them. So just a bit more efficient if you have an engineer on the founding team.
And like speaking of problem solving, I want to go back to your TED Talk. And I actually want to get this right. So
Sure.
I had a screenshot of this actually. Just so people are aware of like, and this was my biggest takeaway from that TED Talk, is the key steps for problem solving by you is number 1, you define the problem.
Yeah.
Number 2, make sure you fully understand the problem. Number 3, break the problem down into small and manageable pieces. 4, go as deep as you can until you get to easy yes or no questions. 5, work your way from the bottom until the problem is solved. And lastly, recognize some problems are completely out of your control, and that's okay.
Sweet. Man, that sounds awesome because I haven't read that in a long time, and that makes me sound so smart and cool.
I know.
Oh, you are smart.
So I have like 2 questions about that.
Sure.
This sixth step, like the perfect 6 steps for solving a problem. How did this come to be? And I'll ask the second question after, I guess.
Yeah, I don't quite recall how I came up with that. But I think that was just the way that I figured out how to just do life. And maybe it was because harder problems kind of overwhelm me. So like if I use the example of like struggling through school, right? Like when I failed those courses, I was like, hey, what's the problem? Like, how do I fix this? How do I start passing classes? And it was like, okay, well, what do I have problems with? Oh, well, okay. When I go to school, I don't absorb a lot of information. I get like 10, 15 minutes, and then I kind of like, my eyes get, glaze over, and things just start, my mind wanders, and it's like, okay, well, maybe I just need to be taking like shorter classes. So I stopped taking hour-and-a-half classes, and I only take 45-minute classes. So I think how I developed this was just like looking back at how I solved other problems. And something else I just realized as I'm saying this is the word problem, I think maybe has like a negative connotation. It's like a problem is something bad and has to be fixed. But I think of like problems as just like opportunities to like solve things. Like whenever I think of like a problem, I don't think of like, oh, that's a bad thing to have. It's not a bad thing to have a problem. It's just there, and you can do something about it, or you don't have to. I think that's like also the way I kind of approach problem solving is like, because like really everything is a problem. Like your daily routine's a problem, right? It's like, it's a problem is just a solution to a problem is a series of steps you do, and then it's done kind of thing. So I think I was just evaluating parts of my life where I applied some sort of critical thinking to and tried to break them down into steps.
By the way, love that TED Talk, and like Nikhil said, we'll link it in our podcast when it's released. And this is something that I feel like you probably have a lot of insight for a lot of people how they deal with problems is, what's the most common mistake people make when they're trying to solve their problems?
That's a tough question because I can only speak for myself. So when I think of like common mistakes that the most common mistake that I encounter is pretending the problem doesn't exist and like, or procrastinating on it, or things like that, where it's like, oh, like I can deal with this. I don't want to, that's hard, or I don't want to deal with that right now, or I'm going to save that one for tomorrow. Right. I think that's my biggest struggle when it comes to like overcoming things, is just like putting it off because I don't want to do the work. But I also could see overcomplicating them, not being able to kind of think of them in smaller chunks.
Right.
I could see that being a barrier as well. Yeah.
And not that like everybody needs to have like their startup to think to get over procrastination, but you think like having Offstreet changed that a lot for you, like procrastination, because like there's so much to do, there's so many clients, there's so much code and stuff to write.
Yeah.
That at the back of your mind that I can't waste time here.
Yeah. So there's a phrase that you hear a lot in startup communities and in advice. And it's like this concept of like burning the ships. So I don't remember which explorer did this or if they actually did it, but the story goes that this explorer, maybe they went to the new land. Let's call it, they discovered North America. And the expedition leader like burned the boats once they got there. And it was like, and then the theory was, well, if the boats are there, there's incentive to quit and go back home. So I think that for me, my partner and I had to quit our jobs to make this work, because there's no motivation like, homelessness, right? There's no better motivation to like make something work than be like, oh no, like if this, like there's no plan B, right? There's no like, I'm not going to work on it, right? There's no thing to be like, you know what, I'm not feeling it. It's like, no, you have to, because the alternative, like if you don't do this, like now that being said, I'm in a place of privilege, and the worst thing that would happen to me is I have to go get a job, right? And at the time, getting a software development job was really easy. So, I mean, that is also kind of a nice thing to be like, oh, I can always just get a job that doesn't work. But by burning the ships and fully committing to it, you just like incentivized to make it work, because like that's the only thing you have to focus on. is like staying alive, just like making sure this company can make money at some point, and then it's going to be good. There's no like, you know, if we did that part time, you'd be working your 8 to 5 job, and then, you know, you get home from work and you're like, I don't really feel like working on it tonight. I feel like, you know, playing games. I feel like watching TV, right? I'm tired. So yeah, committing is hard, but it's important.
I think we were talking about that last night.
Yeah.
Like the exact same thing.
So we had like one of the guests, you know, David Akinmade.
I think so. Yeah.
So like he said the same thing. Like he watched this anime called One Piece.
Oh yeah.
And in that anime, there's like a story that they go to some island and they burn all the boats.
Okay.
And just they keep the main Thousand Sunny. Just Thousand Islands.
Something like that.
Keep that boat and burn everything. It's like we die here or we win.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. 100%. And I think that you have to approach it with that mentality because you don't want to regret it, right? Like if you're going to commit to something, like full send, like go for it. Because if you don't, like, and you, like, at least if it doesn't work out, you could be like, I gave it everything and it didn't work out. And that's fine. Like, I think failure is such an important thing. And a lot of, it's scary, right? Because, especially in our society, when, you know, you look at somebody who like tried the entrepreneur thing and didn't work out, right? Like people like, oh, like he's a failure, right? Like, especially like your parents would be like, my parents were not very supportive of my journey. Not because they're not supportive, it's because they're afraid. They want me to have a good life. They want me to be successful. They want me to have money to be able to live a good life. They want me to have a safe career. But sometimes you gotta try and doing it a different way.
When you say parents, that includes your dad. Do you think he was less supportive because he saw his own venture fail?
My dad was, I think, so he was neutral. I think it was my mother who was really not supportive in that. Like, she was supportive in other ways for sure, but like, you know, one of the common things was like when you know things were struggling in the beginning, she's like, oh, why don't you just go back to your old job, like go apply, just get a job. My dad was probably, you know, in the middle where he could see both sides. He's like, I want what's best for you, but also I like, you know, when it doesn't work out, it sucks. So you don't want that for your kid either. Yeah.
You know, your story and like what Nikhil also like tied it in with David's story. Like one thing that came to mind instantly when you mentioned that you and Matt have to like, you know, let go of your safety net.
Yeah.
So there's this movie by Christopher Nolan, the Batman trilogy.
Yeah.
Right. So like the last Batman, Dark Knight Rises, when Bruce is like thrown in the prison, where he has to like climb out of it.
Right.
Right. Every time that he was failing is because he had that rope attached to him.
Yeah.
And that scene gave me immense goosebumps. Like, I can't tell you like how powerful that was. And it's like a superhero movie, but like it still speaks volumes.
Yeah.
How it's directed, the background music. But the only reason the child got out of it too, and how Bruce got out of it, is no matter how tall like that wall may be, you have to let go of the rope. You have to let go of the safety net. When you know that, like how Nikhil says, like the only other option is you fall from 300 feet and you die, or you can climb out of it. Every time he had that rope attached to him, he was just failing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's risk taking, right? It's like you can't, like high risk, high reward, right? It's why that like entrepreneurship, in theory, you can make, you know, more money doing that than you can even as one of the highest paid professions, like being a doctor or a lawyer. But with that comes great risk. You have to risk it all to even try to get there. And there's such a small percentage that do. But unless you commit to it, yeah. Like if you think of like all of the top like pro athletes, their entire lives were like designed around that sport, right? Like the best hockey players were playing hockey when they were 2 and 3 and sacrificed their educations to be the best. And sometimes, actually most times, it doesn't work out. Same for being in a startup. Like very few startups succeed or even make money. So there's huge risk, but you know, there's that high upside that probably is what keeps you going. So, yeah.
What separates a successful startup from a failing startup? Why do you think they fail?
Most of the time, it's because they don't achieve something called product market fit. And what that means is they have the right product in the market or for the right market at the right time. So there's an analogy about surfing. So the surfer is the founder, their surfboard is the product, and the market is the wave. And they like a founder, so like the surfer on the surfboard, when there's no waves, and if the surfboard's a good surfboard, it's a good product, they're just be chilling there, right? They're not going to drown. They're like, they're on their surfboard. It's working, but they're not really going anywhere. And it requires that market wave, and they have to drop in on that wave at the right time in order to kind of have success. And so you can have a great team and a great product, but a market that is not interested in buying your product. Also, you can have a great team and a market that's ready for a product, and you can build the wrong one. But really, I think failure comes down to like missing one of those three things. Either the product's wrong, either the market isn't right there for you, or it's a timing thing. It's that like you were too early for adoption, or maybe you were too late because somebody got there first before you did. But yeah, it's generally product market fit that most startups end up losing money, they've run out of money and then they fail.
And all comes down to listening to the customers.
Yeah, and that's how you discover product market fit, right? And what product market fit feels like is when you have a product so good that you can't sell enough of it, or like there's so much demand that it feels like you're failing. Like it's when so many, like if you can feel like you're in trouble if you onboard a bunch of customers, the software isn't scaling right, maybe you're having outages, maybe you have customers leaving because of these outages. That can all feel like a really bad thing, but ultimately it's amazing because it means that like you're suffering from success, right? Like that's what like finding product market fit is.
Slowly at the top.
Yeah. And so we experienced that, like, so when we went from 0 to 1 and in our frame of view, 1 meant over $1 million a year in annual recurring revenue. Once we kind of got there, we were like adding all these, universities, things were going well. And like, then you kind of start having scaling problems. You have a couple outages. Somebody accidentally does something and it deletes something, and a customer's really mad and they come at you. But ultimately, when you suffer from your own success, that's great because you're succeeding. Like that, those problems wouldn't be happening to you if you weren't successful. So, yeah.
All right. I think it's a perfect way to end the podcast. We would love to do another one with you. We'll talk about games and go a little nerd.
Sounds good.
Okay. So at the end of the podcast, we just do like a rapid fire round.
Sweet.
I'll ask you 3 questions. Pranav's going to ask you 3 questions.
Okay.
You just have to answer in 1 word or 1 sentence.
Okay.
If you like to go forever, you could.
Sure. Let's do it.
Okay.
So if you could give one piece of advice to 20-year-old, your 20-year-old self,
Yeah.
what would that be?
I would give myself the same advice, if I didn't have it already, that my doctor gave me about that, like, at the end of the day, C's get degrees, that, when you finish school, they'll call you an engineer, even if you don't feel you're succeeding. That was like really impactful for me. And I would say the same thing if that hadn't been said to me.
What's the worst piece of advice you've ever heard?
Oh, that's tricky. I don't know, because anytime I hear bad advice, it just doesn't stay.
But then,
It doesn't stick in my head. I don't know. That's a tricky one. I'll think about that a lot today, though. I'll be coming back tomorrow and tell you.
So what are you most grateful for in your life right now?
I am grateful for my team. So we have been able at Offstreet build an unbelievable team that is intelligent, hardworking, but also like compassionate and friendly. We have such a great company culture. I'm like just shocked that we were able to do that because we weren't very intentional about it. And we just happened to develop like one of the coolest and best places that I think that I've ever worked. And also I think a lot of people have ever worked. So yeah, we have a fantastic team and it's unreal.
Yeah. I think the culture flows downwards. It comes from the founders. So in some way, you guys inculcate those values. That's why it's flowing down in the culture.
Yeah, that's what I hear. And like but I'm so skeptical about it because I'm like, I just don't feel that like, I mean, maybe the vibes that Matt and I are giving off are great and we're just blind to them. But, when I think of like my impact on it, I'm like, oh, maybe that's a self-esteem thing. I'm not sure.
I think the people also matter, like what kind of people you hire too.
Yeah. The early people, for sure. They're your first 5 to 10, like absolutely, because they set the stage for the rest. Absolutely.
Like you're suffering from success.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. And what's something that you didn't value in the past, but now in the present, you do?
Communication. So I'm sitting here being like, talk to your customers. It's the most important thing. But, it took us a while to figure that out. Even though in the beginning we knew that was what we had to do. It was just like you didn't see it work until like you were struggling and you overcame it by like figuring it out through that communication. That's something that I undervalued. And now I think it's so important, especially when it comes to time too, because when I'm communicating my ideas to my team, it can be very frustrating when they don't land. And it feels like a waste of time to try and make sure everyone understands, especially when you're spending all this time and resources in developing or trying to communicate your ideas when there could be actually time spent building. And now I've learned that like good communication scales really well. And your time, even though you might think should be spent building and doing the thing, empowering your team to do that by communicating properly to them is way more important.
If you could make one rule that everybody in this world had to follow, what would that be?
You are not allowed to listen to music or anything from a phone without wearing headphones in public. Like talking about people who are like FaceTiming in public and you can hear the audio, or like listening to music on the subway.
Oh, right.
That bugs me so much. So I would make it illegal to play bad music out of a phone. Like if the music's coming from like a speaker, like or something that actually sounds good, I'm like okay with it. But out of a phone at full volume, like no, thank you.
So what kind of music do you like?
I'm all over the place, man. Like everything from like classical piano to like death metal, hardcore, punk to like indie rock, singer-songwriter stuff, some pop music.
Right.
Anything that like sounds good and like, I think other ADHD folks can relate when, you get the headphones on and you're just like in the zone. It's the music that's like kind of setting a stage for your mind. So yeah, I just like love music in general.
Yeah. With headphones on.
With headphones on. Yeah. Set noise canceling. Yeah.
Do you listen to music while working?
Yeah, I would say, like almost like when I need to focus, absolutely. Yeah. Huge headphone guy while working.
It changes the game for me too. Nikhil on the other hand, he's like, I can't do it.
I can't even listen to music while working out.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird.
Yeah. I don't listen to music when I run, but yeah, I can see that. But yeah, for me, just like something about it like puts the mind in the right place. That it, like I just get dialed in. I get in the flow state.
100%.
Flow state. Oh, okay. Have you read the book?
No, I haven't. Yeah. It's good.
I started it. I'm halfway through it. So I'm reading like 4 books at a time. I just pick whatever, whenever.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Kyle. It was an awesome interview. Couldn't have asked for a better guest, to be honest.
Thank you. I had fun. It was good. Let's do it again.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you for being on A Little Perspective.
Thank you.